Dawson here, one of our NutriMed team. Clay, we're making a lot of progress. Just to give some updates, and people may see some of the boxes at NutriMedical on our Listen Live are changing a lot. What we're trying to do is improve the listening and the video viewing experience. I'm now embedding videos on all the different products and also all our protocols. It's going to take months to get all the protocols done, but the products will be done probably in the next few weeks. And we want to explain more about what the what the products are. Everything will be in Vimeo, which means that I want you to sign up on our live stream channel, sign up to the live stream so you get notified when new videos are coming out, but also sign up over on our Vimeo channel and HD video. And we have a number of different, you want to call subcategories there, that you can listen to different topics, and videos are all categorized. The protocols are being put up there to make it more understandable, and there's a small fee if you go to Vimeo to look at those videos, because they're going to be pretty extensive. They take a lot of work to do. But I think people should understand we're providing a level of service here that is going to really help you to make the proper decisions. It's funny, I just talked earlier this morning to or get a consult from a physician who's concerned about their parent who's quite ill. And so I get consults from doctors all the time. And when people try to go out there on the internet, and even if they're a physician or a naturopath or chiro, they don't realize in many cases that the level of nutraceuticals available now technologically are far more advanced than what was available even a few years ago. And so let's pick out some good examples of that, Clay, because I think people should realize that when we have nutraceuticals, they are bioconverted to their activated state that jumps over gene defects. They're biodelivered like our new Cell Defense Plus in a way that is remarkable power that's never seen before, whether it's because it's an Ayurvedic herb, it's probably one of the most important. And enzymatically, we have nutraceuticals that have effects on the body for inflammation like Inflamex that is superior to non-steroidals but doesn't have side effects. So I would say 99% of the time, I basically say I can find a supplement nutraceutical for NutriMeds that can obviate the need for taking drugs. Can you pull out a couple of examples of what you have seen in the past, Clay?
Oh, sure, yeah. Well, I really like the example of the Living Probiotic Ultra. 20 years ago, they're just getting into the research on probiotics, and they're just telling you to eat kefir or yogurt. Hey, there's some benefits there. And they were right. A lot of the granola types were telling you to do that stuff. But this is within gastroenterology and general wellness, this is the most research is being done in the gut in probiotics. And the Living Probiotic Ultra is 100 billion live human organisms that you can take per capsule. And so one of the most potent, powerful probiotic on the market. Not to mention, these are all researched strains. They actually have been shown to have beneficial effects in the body through research, not just, hey, we're telling you to go eat yogurt, but these have actually been researched. Yeah,
these are far superior to just getting yogurt, exactly. The regular Living Probiotic is the Roselle 6 strain, the most researched strain on Earth for probiotic. And our How Are You strain, the Living Probiotic Ultra, is so powerful you can take it, and even before you go to, say, Haiti, you won't get a bacterial or viral enteritis, which is very remarkable. People also don't realize that probiotics have benefits in reversing some of the major problems like diabetes, weight loss, joint inflammation, brain inflammation, cancer rates, because probiotic bacteria prevent deconjugating bacteria from re-releasing toxins, from raising what's called a pyrogen level in your tissues and body because of dead toxic bacteria, like especially anaerobes. Anaerobes, for example, are a major factor causing autism to flare up in BOF, we call brain on fire, whether it's a senior citizen or a child. They don't realize BOF, or brain on fire, is a syndrome now that's rapidly increasing in society, and depending on the age group, it can manifest as different symptoms, whether it's a child with autism or an adult that's losing their memory and having signs of organic brain dysfunction. So probiotics are pretty amazing stuff. So another area that is important for brain function, I just had a call earlier today from a couple that were both suffering symptoms of tingling and numbness in their feet and their hands at times. And the first thing I always think of is peripheral neuropathy and microcirculation like Raynaud's syndrome. So I tell people right off the bat, you want to be on the fat-soluble thiamine called ultrathymine B1, Omega Supreme Krill, the krill oil, astaxanthin for remyelination. And you want to be on the Cognition Plus and Brain Power. Brain Power being vinpocetine. And we use it also in children with Down syndrome, senior citizens, people with Parkinson's, because it reduces the free radical level in Parkinson's, the secondary neuron in the tectum or the roof of the midbrain where the neurons are dropping out. Let's go through some of these to give an example of why Cognition Plus is, I call, the smarter in an hour pill.
Well, when you look at all the research about brain support and brain function in terms of natural medicine, all the usual suspects come up that are found in Cognition Plus. And that's so you don't have to go out and take all the different ones separately. You can get 20 different bottles. You can get it all in one. You know, things like activated B6, activated folic acid, activated B12, acetyl-L-carnitine, N-acetylcysteine, ginkgo biloba extract, bacopa extract, phosphatidylserine, vinpocetine, transresveratrol, and huperzine A. So really everything that the research says to take if you want to support brain function is all found in one. And 1 to 2 caps a day is really max dose to get the effects.
Exactly. Now, one of the important things I think people should realize is how these have a dramatic effect on the body and how you can actually quantitatively measure that it's actually changed. That's pretty interesting, isn't it? How people say, well, how can you measure it? Well, if people consult me, I can say, look, you can do tests of brain imaging, you can do tests on brain function like quantitative EEGs, you can do urinary and blood organic acid molecules, all kinds of ways of now quantitatively measuring that these nutraceuticals have a dramatic effect on the body. Another interesting syndrome is diabetes. About a month ago, research came out from UCLA that 69% of the adult population in over age 30 in California, which is a good example across America in this we call the first world, are diabetic or pre-diabetic. Now, myself and Dr. Audihun were the first in the world to discover diabetic insulin resistance syndrome based on research from Dr. Kraft, a pathologist at the University of Chicago. And what we proved is that insulin glucose tolerance tests, we measured other hormones like glucagon, cortisol, ACTH, prolactin, T3 and reverse T3, etc. What we discovered, and this is important to people, and this is, by the way, for you doctors out there, you're not only trying to reduce insulin and insulin resistance, you're trying to reduce glucagon. And our berberstatin is the most powerful supplement for reducing glucagon. So you take at least 2 capsules twice a day of each, the diabetoline and glucagon, which is our berberstatin. Then you can add additional things such as biotin plus, because biotin is very important because mitochondrial dysfunction is a sine qua non of diabetes. Elevated cytokine levels are elevated, such as using NutriTrala, which is a long-acting alpha-lipoic acid to lower glycation and singlet oxygen, because your antioxidant systems are reactivated, and leptin metabolic, which will lower leptin and insulin resistance. We now know that I'm in communication with the University of California, San Diego, and I'm going to have the researchers on the program talking about this. They did what's called a deletion mouse model for diabetes, and they found that leukotriene B4, produced by macrophages, is the primary cause of diabetes. But the thing, what it causes is elevated LTB4, it's singlet oxygen and hydroperoxy radicals. So glutathione peroxidase, our cell detox glutathione, and NutriTrala, and the use of high-dose power C is very important for stopping oxidative reactions that trigger off the leukotriene B4 levels. And we're now realizing that our diet in North America is very pro-inflammatory. So when LTB4 is high, you're going to get insulin resistance. Then your body jumps up glucagon to make sure as your blood sugar is seesawing, it doesn't drop like a rock, and your cortisol levels go up so your adrenals are working overtime. So all these things are all very negative things that happen. Interesting, hey?
It is, yeah. I really like that cell detox glutathione. In the old days, meaning just a few years ago, you'd have to go in and get a IV of glutathione if you really wanted to get it into the cell. But right, now with the cell go ahead.
Yeah, so I think it's important. So please continue on that, because a lot of people will take whey protein, and we're looking at perhaps adding a super high quality whey protein, which is a good thing to add. But if you're trying to stop free radicals, let's say if you've got a peripheral neuropathy like these people that called me this morning, the next layer beyond taking Omega Supreme Krill and fat soluble thiamine and Cognition Plus and Brain Power is to add the free radical blockers, NutriTrala, and cell detox glutathione, isn't it?
Yeah, oh, for sure. Yeah, the NutriTrial has been studied to be effective at staying in the blood for up to 7 hours, depending on your digestion, and just bathing the cells in alpha-lipoic acid, which is, as we know, is one of the recyclers of glutathione and one of the most powerful antioxidants in the world. And then you add on top of it something like cell detox glutathione, and what a great 1-2 punch.
Yeah, it really is amazing. We could actually, when people are really curious, depending on how rich and how curious they are, I can recommend specific tests that can tell you everything. For example, I was a consultant for even hematologists when I was working in Denver because I had a Rheologics machine, and I was doing the advanced rheologic test for hyperviscosity syndromes. Most people don't realize blood viscosity is tied directly to antibodies on the outside of your red cells that make them a Rouleau phenomena and increased drag, we call non-Newtonian fluid dynamic drag. And the best test for measuring increased risk for heart attack and stroke and so on is a blood viscosity test called Rheologics, which I can arrange for you to get the test on, which most of your doctors don't know about it. You also have to measure other factors that can trigger off plaque formation, such as soluble ICAM 1 and 2, fibrin degradation products, and levels of these other markers that actually are elevated when people like PI1, plasminogen activator inhibitor 1, besides C-reactive protein. Well, we have nutraceuticals that will lower all those markers. And we have, of course, our Cardiovasc. We have Supernox, which I think people should realize our Supernox is specially designed to lower, to raise nitric oxide production in the blood vessels, because the primary thing that drives hypertension and heart failure and a lot of diabetic vascular changes is a loss of nitric oxide and a loss of also superoxide dismutase, which are the enzymes to protect your blood vessel walls from oxidative stress. So the two are tied together. You see elevated free radicals, decreased superoxide dismutase, isoenzyme 1 and 2, and decreased nitric oxide. So what I do is I recommend the first two as Supernox and BioLVR, because you need to make tetrahydrobiopterin in your blood vessels, and you need the minerals and Minerals Plus to do so, especially molybdenum. Most people don't realize, believe it or not, molybdenum you can use to reduce HAPE and HAG, which is high-altitude pulmonary edema, high-altitude cerebral edema. And I remember talking to the research doctors at the University of Colorado in Denver, and they were having a number of children because of high altitude. They're coming up with pulmonary hypertension needle-nailed, especially if they're preemies. And I said, add nitric oxide to their oxygen in their little isolettes, and their pulmonary wedge pressures will come down, and lo and behold, it did. So it's a standard now in the University of Colorado to use nitric oxide in their neonatal intensive care unit, but that's still not good enough. You want to generate it in the person's blood. So what they should be doing is giving the nutraceuticals we talk about to generate that, the activated B6, B12, and folic acid, and the levels of actinose, which is a special whey protein extract, along with the arginine and other amino acids that are necessary to generate nitric oxide. And most people are not aware of this at all, and the doctors are trying to treat hypertension by ways that are lowering blood pressure, but it's not improving blood perfusion. So let's talk about that for a bit. Supernox and BioLVR, that's the first things I tell people to try to restore nitric oxide production. You can test it on the back of your tongue with Berkeley, Berkeley test strips. You can order it at Amazon or get it at a pharmacy. Amazon's probably the best, and they come from Switzerland. And they're really inexpensive. You put one on the back of your tongue, it'll turn pink if you're making nitric oxide. So let's talk about those two, BioLVR and Supernox.
Yeah, I love this. So Supernox is fabulous for increasing nitric oxide. It is the L-arginine AKG, which is the preferred form of arginine. It's the best study form. You get it out of Germany. It's a lot higher quality form of just regular L-arginine that you just get off the shelf. So right. You do get what you pay for.
Right.
Not to mention it is in a control release type matrix within the pill, so that it will release the nitric oxide slowly but surely over the course of many hours. So right. It smooths out the nitric oxide response, so you don't have any kind of potential negative side effects from just a quick release of L-arginine, which sometimes can be dangerous, as studies have shown.
Right. I think one of the things that people should realize is as we fix each of these problems, for example, inside the blood vessel wall, one of the first things I recommend is Omega Supreme Krill, cell detox glutathione, and vein away, which is diosmin, to repair the endothelial lining. When you repair that, and then you repair the mitochondria with things like Sports Energy Light, our other nutraceuticals we use for mitochondrial repair, and of course the levels of CoQ10 and CoQ10 ubiquinol, you start to see a return of mitochondrial function in the heart and blood vessels. So we see a lot of people don't realize, for example, atrial fibrillation, heart failure, and hypertension are tied directly to low magnesium levels, which we can repair with magnesium glycinate malate, which works in the Krebs cycle, and the brain mag, which is magnesium L-threonate and magnesium glycinate malate with a nice flavor. It's really good stuff. And the combination is able to stop cardiac arrhythmias. And people say, well, how long does it take? Well, I said, believe it or not, if you just take the supplements alone, even at max dosage, you could take 3 to 6 months. It's not easy because most people are so deficient their levels are in their boots. If your level of your magnesium in your blood drops below 1.1 milligram per deciliter, what do you think happens?
Heart attack, maybe?
You die instantly. You get a full cardiac arrest. Instantly, anybody. Lower than 1.1 milligram. So your body will rob Peter to pay Paul, because if your heart doesn't have that level of magnesium, it can't stop the tonic reaction of contraction of the heart muscle, and it doesn't relax. So you have a complete, immediate cardiac arrest. Interesting, eh?
Scary. Yeah, very scary.
So people don't understand how important magnesium is, and also, if you don't have adequate magnesium, you can't even hold on to potassium. So when people are chronically hypokalemic, even if they're taking very mild diuretic or not at all, probably the main thing is that their magnesium is so low. And in the diet, the only source of magnesium is primarily nuts, to a lesser extent green leafy vegetables, and to a lesser extent citrus fruit. That's it. There's no magnesium in any other food, and most of our food is depleted of not only magnesium, but most other minerals like selenium, which is important for superoxide dismutase, chromium, molybdenum necessary for conversion making tetrahydrobiopterin. I guarantee that none of the doctors are measuring molybdenum levels in their patients that have problems with depression or with vascular disease. But without it, you can't. The tryptase and pyrrolase enzymes can't convert your amino acids to neurotransmitters, or you can't make nitric oxide. It's amazing. They don't know any biochemistry at all. It's amazing, isn't it?
It is. Yeah.
Yeah. But, of course, we have the nutraceuticals to fix it. And we can actually fix it a lot faster if you use things like topically the MG12 products. If you take both the brain mag and for your brain, because a lot of these ones are much more absorbable. We still also have the magnesium taurate, which is helpful. But the best that won't bother your bowels is magnesium glycinate malate, and then for the brain, the magnesium L-threonate and brain mag. Good. Well, we'll be back in just a moment with our last segment, Clay. But I think we covered a lot of good material. Heart. I just recently had a consult request regarding a young man with seizures. We'll come back. We'll talk about that as to why brain mag is so important for seizure activity, both in the motor areas and non-motor areas of the brain. And welcome back, and working hard over the weekend with Jim Corsi up in New York. And we are expanding dramatically our live stream video channel. So if you sign up, you'll get a notification whenever we're doing a video, either a conference or video live. You can actually, and here's how you contact us if you're going to raise questions and come on air as well. Because after every show today and every day, we're going to do a daily summary of the shows. We're also going to bring on guests and other people. And you can call in, but the way you call in is you call into my Skype. And you dial up NutriMedical 1, in lowercase, N-U-T-R-I, medical number 1. You request a contact, and of course, what I'd recommend you do is put your name and your information, that your questions or your statement. And then if you're calling in, we approve you, and of course you're in our file, you can call in, and then we will then see which particular questions you have, and we can bring you on air. We will be doing live videos after the show every day, and then we'll do a week-long summary of the major shows, plus other videos. In fact, I just put together a video regarding Roger Stone and that interview done on the 22nd. That's available on Vimeo as well as on our website over on Vimeo, on our Vimeo link. So Vimeo HD channels. And we also still, of course, have our live stream. You want to sign up at live stream. That's where you get notifications. And you want to also sign up over on our Blueberry, which gives you all of the podcasts. And we have it on every system. With the Vimeo, you can watch the videos on Google TV, Roku, all these different access ways. So you can actually watch it wherever you want, on any system you want, with Vimeo. It's going to be really amazing. So our production platform is live stream. Our main video is going to be on Vimeo. And we have also YouTube, which we will be dropping over YouTube's as well. The thing is, on Vimeo, they can't pull or sanction our videos if we have something that they don't approve over at YouTube. And we have a Vimeo Pro, which means we have tons of memory, 3 terabytes to put all our videos up, and you get really fast downloads. So that'll be extremely useful. We also are allowing a lot of channels. So when you go to the Vimeo, you can find the channel of the type of topic. You can also search by keywords because it's all tagged. So you can find the right videos you want within our Vimeo channels system. So that makes it really easy. We also have that available over on Blueberry, where all the shows are tagged and cross-index if you want to look for a particular guest or show. And we're taking all the old archives going right back to February 2009. Those eventually will all be up on our Blueberry with links. The hyperlinks directly to watch the videos from there will be also embedded on Blueberry, but they're going to be played through Vimeo or through live stream. So all you have to do is go to Blueberry, sign up there for the podcast, and you're going to get automatically sent to your phone or your iPad or your computer so you can have access. We want to make sure that we're more responsive to what you want. Now, if you have any question at any time, you get a free consult by email. If you're one of our quote, regular customers, and the gatekeeper is Michelle, you will get access to phone calls back. And if you want to consult, anybody can request a consultation, which I charge for my time if you have a complex case and you want to send me records, like the doctor this morning regarding his parent. What I do is I provide not only medical consults, but medical legal as well. And we're here as a ministry, so we provide all these email consults free and phone callbacks to our regular customers. Now, the regular customers will also, through Michelle, get access to the wellness conditions, and they get the password. Over at our Vimeo channel, you'll be able to see the new protocols as they go up. There's a small charge for each, and I think it's like $2 for each wellness condition video. And that'll allow you to have access to a lot more information than just in the wellness condition itself. These are teaching. They're going to include a lot of additional information that'll be present in them. Let's go back to some of the things that are happening locally in your news, and just want to touch on some of the things. What's going on right now, for example, in the election cycle is very bizarre. Ted Cruz is extremely delusional that he's going to move forward. But here's some of the facts, and we'll talk about this in the bottom of the next hour with my son Matthew, who's been doing a lot of study on the symbology. In fact, last week he made the statement that looking at the symbology of Ted Cruz, he is, quote, Satan incarnate, which I thought was quite funny for him to make that statement. But it was within hours that Mr. Boehner, the former Speaker of the House, made the same statement. So we're going to talk about what's going on in the election cycle at the bottom of next hour with Matthew, and we'll look at some of the symbology of what's happening right now, because I think Trump eventually will get the nomination, but with all the negativity, I'm very concerned he may not get the presidency, and criminal Hillary may become our next president, God help us. The things we've discovered, Ryan, is that unwellness is a state that doesn't necessarily give you symptoms. I learned a lesson many years ago that minor symptoms will kill you and major ones will bother you. So in other words, you don't have to have symptoms to have serious pathology. And you can have pathology that basically isn't declaring itself yet, but it's cooking away. And that's why functional medicine tests, which we have, like the QRMA and blood and urine and stool and epigenetic tests, are so important. It's so important to understand that. So let's talk about that for a moment in terms of which nutraceuticals you'd find have the most epigenetic effect. One of them that we're going to be having within days is the New Cell Defense Plus. And it's probably the most important breakthrough nutraceutical we've had in many months. Because curcumin is not very bioavailable, but its actions in the body are mind-boggling in terms of reducing cancer stem cells, repairing DNA, turning off inflammation, literally anti-aging. So many different actions that no other single nutraceutical on the planet can compare to curcumin. But until this new technology, we have cell defense, which improved it a lot with bioperin and our slow-release tablets. Now, this new capsule is really mind-boggling how powerful it is at anti-aging, reducing cancer stem cells, healing, etc. It's remarkable, isn't it?
Oh, it's a great formulation. Great upgrade to the cell defense formula, which has been a very one of the top 5 successful formulas launched in the NutriMedical line It's always been very popular. People are aware of curcumin and the benefits of curcumin, but they often are mystified by the fact that they may take some random curcumin supplements and they don't see the benefits, and that has a lot to do with the bioavailability of the curcumin. As you've talked about many times, it's one of the more challenging ingredients to absorb, and so pretty much everything out there is curcumin extract, and without some added technology like a controlled release format that you've seen with Cell Defense and BioPerine, your ability to truly absorb it and utilize it becomes diminished. But enter in Cell Defense Plus, where this is a very unique extraction process of the curcumin that allows it not to be damaged, and so it still maintains essential oils and other components that basically cause it to naturally just absorb at a very high percentage, and also stay around in the body for a lot longer, over double that of any other curcumin for length of time. So instead of 4 to 5 hours for a similar formula amount, you're talking 8 to 12 hours. So it's a very that's a huge thing when it comes to whether or not you can get an effective response from using a nutraceutical.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Can you mention anything else about what other nutraceuticals you'd give with that? I would like the use of Inflamex with that in terms of. Yeah, so the combination of Inflamex, which breaks up and gets rid of pyrogens, breaks down the debris in the lymphatics, and has also serrapeptase Socrum enzyme. The anti-inflammatory combination of those enzymes plus the serrapeptase combined with the curcumin is an amazing thing, because most people don't realize most disease has an inflammatory component, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think that when you look at it, the way that this Cell Defense Plus can work, this is a really good option for a lot of people that are stuck using non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. And, these are things that people reach to because they're in pain or inflamed and they don't know what else to take. And certainly, you talk about it a lot, Dr. Bill, with regards to how it impedes the healing process, just literally covering up the warning lights of the body. And where you can use something like the Cell Defense Plus to manage those issues really effectively because it's so powerful. And then, as you say, the Inflamex, what a neat 1-2 punch. The Inflamex being these proteolytic enzymes that work systemically in the body. Most people hear the term enzyme and they think about digestive enzyme, but in the case that this is a formulation you actually take away from food, and its design is to work more systemically throughout the body to really help deal with either acute or more long-term challenges.
Yeah, and one of the important things is inflammatory markers are quite important, and you can measure things like the old SED rate, which is a marker that's 4,000 years old. Believe it or not, the ancient Egyptian doctors could do a SED rate. But we have more advanced ones like C-reactive protein, even better than that, Pi1, markers like cytokines like IFN gamma. And when you start using these things that reduce free radicals and reduce inflammation, much of the underlying process of the disease disappears. A good example is getting rid of the triggers, the epigenetic triggers for inflammation, things like tendon mender that works as an epigenetic signaler, and joint performance helps rebuild the cartilage. Let's talk about these for a minute. If you've got carpal tunnel syndrome, you want to be on our Inflamex, Cell Defense Plus, tendon mender, and joint performance, because the intercarpal bones are actually getting arthritic changes in them. But there's also intercarpal ligaments that are inflamed, and the tenocytes between them are inflamed, and enough swelling occurs that starts to compress the myelinated and non-myelinated fibers as well as the motor fibers, so you can actually get muscle atrophy of the hand muscles. So a good example is the application is carpal tunnel syndrome. So let's talk about this for a minute.
Well, in speaking to the tendon mender, as we talk about the addition of that formulation, repetitive motion injury issues, where people look at a carpal tunnel situation, but there can be issues obviously going on, plantar fasciitis, the Achilles tendinopathies, issues with knees, elbows, shoulders. In a lot of cases, the only way that people have been able to deal with this is usually to add some kind of device. It could be a strap, it could be inserts, it could be a restraining, brace, because they can't use that area without constantly inflaming it. And the tendon mender is just fascinating in what the research has been shown to do, which is allow the tenocytes to realign and lay down and thin out like they're supposed to, rather than kind of bulging up and acting more like scar tissue. And so I think that's a great addition, as you're saying, repetitive motion injury-wise. The joint performance certainly is something to consider having an addition if people are starting to notice their joints aren't working as well as they should. Range of motion is being compromised. strength is being compromised. These are all good signs that you're kind of getting this metabolic progression of something like knee osteoarthritis, for example. And so using something like joint performance, it's really it's got a focused capabilities to really help with the synovial fluid, almost like you would do an oil change in the car. I mean, in this case, you're working on the synovial fluid that's encapsulated in the joints that's creating it's supposed to be, a frictionless environment. And so joint performance is a great addition for these people that are, maybe they're weekend warriors, they're starting to notice they don't recover and bounce back like they used to, or they're, really been challenged with joint problems and they've used chondroitins, they've used glucosamine, and they're like, I don't really know what's going on. Well, you got to be able to put the flames out before you're just going to bring in the building blocks to repair.
Yeah, one of the most important things is to understand that we can intervene where we don't interfere with the actual healing process. If you use non-steroidals, you actually destroy the cartilage. It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, and again, this is stuff that people are not even aware they're doing. They're like, they think it's just, benign to take over-the-counter medicines and so forth that, it just got rid of the pain so I can do whatever it is I need to do. And I get that people need to move on with life in the sense that they can't take time off from maybe a job or whatever they need to do. But it's just your body crying out that it needs some different kind of support. And I think that these four that you just mentioned, the Inflamex and the Cell Defense Plus, the Tendon Mender and the Joint Performance are all such huge options for people.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Now, some of the other areas that I think are really important that people should recognize is mineralization. And our Vitamin Mineral Max and Minerals Plus are not like other vitamins. For example, there are vitamins out there where they just literally dig the minerals out of the ground. And if you have a protein amino acid chelate, they received an award for this technology. It's in all of our nutraceuticals, Life Support, Minerals Plus, and Vitamin Mineral Max. All of our vitamins are in the activated state, so they jump multiple metabolic steps so that your body doesn't have to bioconvert it to work in the enzyme pathways. They can be blocked because of a gene polymorphism, or SNP, SNP they call them, or a toxic blockade, whereas our nutraceuticals jump over those blockade problems. And so they overcome a lot of things that otherwise would be a problem. For example, if you're trying to make tetrahydrobiopterin or antidepressants effects in the brain, our nutraceuticals will jump over those gene defects because they're protein amino acid chelated minerals and they're the activated form of the vitamin. So it makes a very major thing. Let's talk about the drinks for a minute, because I start off my morning, if I'm really busy like I was today, with my drink, which includes Ageless, Life Support, Glycemics, and a few other things I put in the Omega cod liver liquid, and I put some other things in like my NutriDiet. Right now I'm drinking, for example, a drink with a little bit of my Brain Mag Calm Mind and the Sports Energy Light. I mean, that's in my big thermos glass here, and that's a great way to keep your electrolytes and also to keep your energy up without getting, blasted through the ceiling with caffeine. This gives a nice smooth release of a slow release form of caffeine, along with electrolytes and antioxidants. So let's talk about the drinks for a minute, because I think it's something that people
you do the combinations. I'll say that based on what people's history is in the marketplace, the Sports Energy Light is going to be a very popular formulation in the NutriMedical lineup. A berry flavored drink mix. It's basically you just rip open a nitrogen sealed sachet and you dump it into a water bottle or a glass of water and just mix it up, and it tastes really good. So that's great. Two, it's got no sugar in it. It uses stevia for its sweetener, which is very helpful. And it doesn't have any like artificial colorings or artificial sweeteners and other nasty things that oftentimes people get when they're trying to get an energy drink. And when they look at this formulation, Sports Energy Light, you're getting 95 milligrams of caffeine in a serving. But as you said, this is a controlled release. It's actually what's known as a caffeine co-crystal. It's bound to methylated resveratrol. It's got a very unique behavior with the body. Actually, in human clinical studies, they were able to show the benefits that a lot of people drink caffeine for. Cognition improvements, energy improvements, awareness and alertness at 6 hours. 6 hours after taking a dose, versus typical caffeine, where within an hour and a half to 2 hours, people see negligible effects and benefits, and oftentimes because there's a crashing effect, because it takes them up fast, hard, and then crashes them out, that they often obviously are longing for other caffeinated drinks. And I know there's a lot of people that ride that roller coaster every single day and would like to break that cycle. And that's what's beautiful about this is you may be able to get away with literally half or a third or a quarter of the amount of caffeine that you may be normally taking because this is able to maintain in the body. And at the same time, it's wrapped up in a beautiful way with a lot of antioxidants like S-acetylglutathione at 50 milligrams per serving or 500 milligrams of pH-balanced vitamin C along with activated B vitamins like methylcobalamin, 2,500 micrograms, and activated forms of folic acid. Beautiful. And then it's got a very significant amount of electrolytes, 3-4 times higher amounts of electrolytes than anything you find in like the high-end Gatorades and so forth of the world.
Yeah, I remember many years ago, this is back in the 90s, I actually was flying back from New York to the West Coast, and I was sitting with one of the senior research directors at Gatorade, and he was so excited to tell me that the thing they were adding to their Gatorade was magnesium. And it was an inferior form of magnesium, by the way. If you drink too much of what we call low-quality magnesium, say chloride, orally, you're going to get explosive diarrhea. But our magnesium glycinate malate, or brain mag, which goes to the brain, these are new technologies. These are amazing, aren't they?
Yeah, the brain mag, what a fascinating one. The studies behind it when it was coming out, this has been studied for well over a decade, including places like MIT and so forth. But it's fascinating, the material, because it's a specific form of an amino acid chelate for magnesium that allows it to come across the blood-brain barrier very effectively. So when we take normal magnesium, we just have an assumption, either in the world of functional medicine, that you're getting enough across the blood-brain barrier. But it turns out there's most forms just don't and aren't that effective at getting across. And so if there is a lessening of magnesium in the brain, it turns out in animal models, this is where they first study this stuff, it creates a whole plethora of issues. Just like if your muscles didn't have enough magnesium, they don't work right, well, your brain's the same way. And at the same time, they saw things like plaque lesion formation and so forth, even for animals like mice with genetic susceptibility for the progression of things like Alzheimer's. It was fascinating by having adequate amounts of magnesium in the brain that they could inhibit that process from happening, even though the animals had the genetic SNPs for the development of Alzheimer's. Their lifespan should be much shorter than the animals without that genetic SNP. And fascinating, as they watched in the study, not only did the animals not suffer these issues with lesions and then the behavioral issues of Alzheimer's, they actually ended up living longer than the ones that didn't even have the genetic SNP. So I love that story, that research, because we often talk about, and everybody knows, you're born with certain genetics, and then you feel like there's nothing you can do about it. But that's the kind of study that shows you that the genetics, it's a crude analogy to say the genetics may have loaded the gun, but it will be your environment that pulls the trigger.
Well, yeah, this is another aspect I want people to understand. Your mineral content is a primary thing, like the black keys on a keyboard, that triggers off your genes. And if you don't have mineral content that gets into the nucleoplasm, which is a small part of the nucleus, a little envelope, then you can't possibly activate those specific genes.
Well, let me just, while you're on that, so the absorption of minerals, let's just go to Vitamineral Max, for example. Most people listening, Dr. Bill, take a multivitamin, but they don't take kinds that are even built with these true amino acid chelates that really can come across. So when you talk about like the need of minerals for all the genes and what they do in the body is extensive, and yet at the same time we take many forms and vitamins and minerals and even our food that are non-chelated, and most of the ones that even claim to be chelated are really cheap forms that just fall apart during digestion.
Right.
And that means that they get swept out of the body by fiber. They end up possibly feeding pathogenic organisms in the gut. They compete with one another for absorption, and they can also make you feel sick or cause diarrhea, like you mentioned earlier. And those things can be avoided by using the high-quality versions that you find in the NutriMedical lineup.
Now, one of the important things to realize is that your needs are going to vary tremendously. Now, if somebody gives me a functional medicine history, and by the way, if they just do a brief review of what's better and what's not better, I'll say, okay, I'm going to go to level 2. And I found it often easier to say, okay, somebody's got 3 problems. I'm going to give them, say, 2 or 3 nutraceuticals to address each problem. And in a month, they return and say, look, this is better, but that's not in terms of symptoms. Beyond symptoms, though, if you get a QRMA machine, or you do functional medicine testing, which could be blood, urine, stool, etc., we call it to look at the epigenetics, you often find that over 6 months or a year, if you're properly targeting it, you need less of certain things and more of other things. And there's a great deal of science behind this. Regular medicine cannot address the underlying causes of illness. It can't. And I've seen various people out there trying to pretend that they can, with what we call functional medicine testing, to look at the epigenetics. These people are unqualified to make these statements. They don't really know that quantitative biophotonic testing like QRMA and bioplasm, expert in clinical, but moreover, blood tests, urine, stool, metabolites can actually tell you if what you're doing works. So, all the way up to imaging tests, radiology. Stay right there. Will be. What if people use a bit of their imagination? Let's say that you have a health problem, or you don't know you have a health problem, but it's kind of not surfaced in the symptoms. The first step in that process is just drop an email saying, these are my symptoms, what can I do, doc? You may have had testing done, you may have other things, you can send that by email. If you're a regular customer, and we've seen you here over, let's say, the last year a number of times, Michelle or the staff, Mitzi, Chris, or Stephen will pass that message on, and I'll return a phone call. Most of the time, it's best to start off with an email. What I'll often do is I'll give you recommendations for the first nutraceuticals, and if it's necessary for what we call conventional medical tests or alternative testing. If you do alternative testing, that includes things like doing lab testing direct or other services that can get you the test kits. You can bring those test kits, either do them at home like blood, urine and stool, or if it is blood, you can do them at LabCorp or Quest. A small charge will be there, or if you get a mobile blood tech, they can come out to your home. Those test results can come back. They're signed off by the local agencies like, say, Genova Labs in Atlanta. And the test results, when they come back, you send a copy of those over to me, and I look at the test results and tell you what they mean. A lot of time, if you do, let's say, a comprehensive digestive stool analysis that looks at all the different factors in your stool, they have DNA probes, cultures, all kinds of things, look at undigested fibers, we can tell pretty well everything that's going on. We can tell if you've got dysbiotic bacteria, fungi, mold, parasites. If we look at tests, for example, like the comprehensive cardiac panel, it looks at everything from organic acids to your lipid levels, and it does much more advanced tests than the regular conventional tests your doctors are going to do. I also have other labs we can use to measure lipid electrophoresis, which is much more accurate than the regular tests that your cardiologist or internist or family doctor will do, because the most dangerous lipids are not picked up by the regular testing. They're small particle HDL cholesterol, and they will estimate the VLDL cholesterol, but it's only an estimation. They also don't measure whether you have oxidized cholesterol, which is 9-noronyl hydroxycholesterol, or oxidized trans fats, which you need to know. And they also don't measure other tests like, are you having a problem with free radicals? Is your level of superoxide dismutase low, so your oxidized guanosine levels are going to be high, what's called 8-hydroxy 2'-deoxyguanosine. Most of your doctors haven't even remotely heard these terms before, but they can be tested, and we can tell if what we're doing is actually making progress, whether reversing dementia, heart failure, or preparing you. Now, we also have, beyond our amazing nutraceuticals, we have other technology, mild hyperbaric oxygen therapy with ozone, Schumann resonance treatment with the lumen photon and the micropulse. Micropulse, will get Dr. Bob Dennis back on, a NASA engineer, contract engineer, that worked in the space station research facility where they were trying to grow cells in cell culture, and they discovered when they went over polar orbit, it had a dramatic effect in increasing stem cell growth. This generates that. You can wear it transcranially to stimulate we call the pacer center of your brain that actually paces and recreates the biophotonic field for all your organs. You can put it over a sore knee or an inflamed joint, and it'll dramatically reduce inflammation. You can use the lumen photon. So we have a whole range of treatments, and we have all the way up to anti-aging peptides and DNA modulators now available. There are nutrapharmaceuticals that are way beyond nutritionals that we have access to as well, that are the step before or even after a stem cell transplant. So you're not just tapping into vitamins here. This is way beyond that. Back in a moment with hour number 2, and Ryan will be back. Bottom of the hour, Matthew Deagle, my son, will be on. We'll talk about the symbology of the election cycle and what's really going on. And then we hope to track down Jonathan Gray